Megan Mitchell and Sean Welsh from Matchbox Cineclub. Thank you guys so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers.
So tell me a little bit about Matchbox Cineclub. How did it all begin?
Well, it was founded by neither of us, by a chap called Tommy McCormick, who was inspired by cine nights that he'd been to in Iceland, primarily short film nights. At the time in Glasgow, he felt that there wasn't a presence for short films on the big screen. So he started doing short film programmes, future shorts programmes in the CCA. And then after a minute, I was interested in getting into film programming, which is notoriously difficult to get into unless you already have a path. And I got in touch with Tommy, who was a pal, and said, if you want to bring these nights back, I'd be up for helping out. So then we started doing things. We did some pop-ups in Nice and Sleazy and the Old Hairdressers. We did the cinema tent at Doing the Rabbit Hole. And then we started a residency at the Old Hairdressers, which was ran for about a year and a half before we moved to CCA. And then we had a residency here for a while. And then we started doing pop-up events more irregularly and segued into doing more weekend festivals like Cage-a-rama. And yeah, that's pretty much what we've been up to. We do pop-ups in different venues. We've done some stuff in Edinburgh before as well, further afield. But mostly, in terms of what the driving force is, it's films that you can't see elsewhere. That's the kind of the through line.
So I think our ethos of Matchbox boils down to the outcasts, outliers and orphans of cinema. And I think we've expanded on that in the last couple of years with our slightly larger tentpole festivals. So Weird Weekend is a really good example of almost the pure part of our programming. So it is entirely films you can't see anywhere else. And then we've got our other two tentpole festivals, which are KeanuCon and Cage-a-rama, which are obviously films that are more widely accessible, screened more often, but we build around them in a way that it's an event that wouldn't take place otherwise. We do like to keep it fun, and we like to make sure that audiences that come to our events are getting something that they wouldn't get anywhere else. So we're very keen on making sure it's a special event, making sure it's accessible. We've started using sliding scale ticket pricing for everything that we do. So you can purchase either a free ticket or increments all the way up to about £8. And that's based on your income and how comfortable you are. And that also means that people can come along if they can't afford a ticket, or they can give a wee bit more if they can. And we've also recently decided that we're going to caption all of our screenings for deaf audiences.
Yeah, we try to... I think you said that we try to have a sense of fun about it. We try to figure out what the through line was through all our programming, because obviously we started out with this kind of relatively strict idea of the films we screened you couldn't see anywhere else. The films we screened you couldn't see anywhere else, but we realised we wanted to do things like Cage-a-rama, which was a weekend festival of Nicolas Cage films. And that came from a place of love, primarily because we both love Nicolas Cage kind of unreservedly. And so it wasn't a really difficult thing for us to make that leap, like just instinctively to want to do it, because no one else was doing a Nicolas Cage film festival. So, there was that part, the fact that this was an event that wouldn't happen unless we were doing it. But the other thing we came to realise was that we really are about cult audiences as much as we are about cult films. So it's actually not counterintuitive to be screening Con Air if we're screening it in a programme of Nicolas Cage films. It never really gave us a pause to programme it like that anyway, but we realised after the fact that's really what we're doing, is making these films available to audiences and also catering to these audiences that exist for cult figures.
Yeah, so we're into our second year of Cage-a-rama. We've just finished presenting Cage-a-rama 3D, which was a double bill of 2 3D films with Edinburgh International Film Festival, and we'll be back again in January for Cage-a-rama 3 in 2020. And we'd started doing Cage-a-rama, as Sean was saying, quite organically from our own passions. I am the world's leading academic in the Nicolas Cage film Valley Girl, 1982. So that came from a place of love, and then I think we started to look at these cult audiences, this idea of cult actors, and Keanu came from that. And then we'd actually sold out KeanuCon quite well. We had to move it because of the art school fire in Glasgow, and the CCA venue was shut, so we pushed it back a bit. And then about a week before we delivered the festival, it went viral. We had people from all over the world covering us. We got a mention in Vice, AV Club, New York Times was talking about us, 24-hour Nigeria, all over the world. And we had people and audiences reach out as well, really interested in that. So for us, that was really fun. But then it was also then the same week having to deliver that festival to an audience that doesn't care that we went viral. They just want a good event. Yeah. And I think for us that was more fun because it was just the exact same thing we always do. It's just more people were talking about it.
I think we realised through that because obviously there's a train of thought that says if you can have this huge viral coverage, and people automatically were asking us when we were bringing it to the States, and we didn't really think of it that way, but immediately people were telling us it was the first ever Keanu Reeves Film Festival. And like the stateside's outlets were saying that, so that was kind of a surprise. But then people were automatically asking us to bring it over there to do a repeat and to do it bigger. And I think through the kind of coverage and how we had to deal with that, we kind of realised that what we want to do is we might lose some kind of essential part of the way that we present and deliver these festivals by having it even in a 700-seater cinema. So I think what we'd like to do is to keep our events accessible at a certain level and do more of them. And maybe, I guess it's slightly. I mean, it's not to say we'll ever kind of repeat the kind of the wild reaction to KeanuCon. I think that's probably unlikely. KeanuCon 2020 is already on sale, but even if so, I think it's equivalent of a touring band playing several nights in a smaller venue as opposed to a bigger venue. We would prefer to have that kind of interaction with the audience. And I think also there's people that come to our events that would be less comfortable coming to a bigger event, and that's kind of, we wouldn't want to lose that. So that's been a learning curve as well. It's obviously been great to get the positivity, but we also again just accidentally kind of caught onto this worldwide wave of Keanu love. He is the internet's boyfriend, and we were just a tiny aspect of that.
This Weird Weekend coming up, tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so as Megan was saying, that's kind of returning to our kind of core programming of films that are hard to see. And so we did this last year for the first time. It was in June last year, I think. I know that it was June because it was roasting and everyone on the screen was melting. So basically the ethos here is we try to find films that are underscreened or are lost or have brand new restorations, and in some cases are like premieres. So it's a real eclectic programme, and this year we made a real effort to make sure it was 50-50 F-rated, and at the same time this is the first time that one of our festivals is going to be completely captioned, open captioned for the deaf and hard of hearing, as well as the first time we've had sliding scale tickets for each of the individual events. We try to keep our tickets reasonable anyway, and the weekend passes are still available. They're not on a sliding scale, but we try to keep them as cheap as possible. So so the programme itself is probably the best known film is The Burbs, the Joe Dante's The Burbs, which even so is one of Joe Dante's more the cultier end of Joe Dante's filmography. We're lucky enough to have Joe agree to join us via Skype for a Q&A after the screening, and we're also going to be screening the work print of The Burbs just to make it more obscure and more smart arse. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to screen in one room. We're going to have the work print, and in another room simultaneously we're going to have the recent 2K restoration. So you're going to be able to see both versions. So that's the most mainstream event And then we have a whole variety of things from AGFA, the American Genre Film Archive's recent 2K preservations of Sarah Jacobson's films. She was a filmmaker just at the end of the 90s who sadly died very young. But she made a handful of films, but really just the one feature, Mary Jane's Not a Virgin Anymore, and a really distinctive short called I Was a Teenage Serial Killer. So we're going to show those back to back, like I say, in these new 2K preservations, so they're dead shiny. As shiny as they're ever going to be, because they're like 16mm and like deliberately punky and kind of aesthetic. So that's going to be cracking. I just used the word cracking. Should you take over so that I don't do that again?
Well, I think probably the title that we're most excited to be able to screen is Nothing Lasts Forever, which is a lost Bill Murray film. So it has never been theatrically released. It probably never will be. The only way you can see it is on 35mm in an archive print. So we've got the archive print coming to us, and we'll be screening that on Friday night. So that's something that's really special, and I think that we're really pleased to be able to present something in Glasgow that wouldn't be screened at all otherwise.
Yeah, I guess I should say that one of the real driving forces for Weird Weekend was to give us a way to screen these films that people hadn't seen before, because it's a really tricky thing. I'm sure anyone that's ever tried to put on a film, to screen a film that people haven't seen before will understand it's tough, because you have to tell the audience what it is. And so cult films are necessarily have a niche audience, and so it's exponentially more difficult to get people to see a cult film that they've never heard of. So this was a way to answer that, was to do a festival of it. And at the same time, we really felt that Scotland, although it has a number of amazing genre film festivals, including Dead by Dawn and Fright Fest when they do their Glasgow leg, they're more horror focused, and we really wanted to see something like Fantastic Fest or Fantasia in Canada, and these festivals that are screening these more general cult films, like whether it's sci-fi or just weird drama or comedy, just whatever it is, it's got that angle of oddness to it. And so that's really what we were aiming to do with this, and we'd like to keep on building and make it more of a regular kind of tentpole landmark event, and hopefully at some point it will be. The ambition is to have Scotland's Fantastic Fest.
Oh, great. Scalarama, something I know a little bit about, but why don't you tell us a little bit about the Scalarama, what it's about, how it all began, and your involvement?
Sure, okay. Well, the Scalar cinema, which is the inspiration, was a kind of legendary rep cinema in London. It had a number of different iterations, but the kind of the golden era, or the last golden era, and really the one that we kind of hark back to, was in the kind of 80s and early 90s, and they had a really eclectic programme where they would screen high art films and absolute trash, and quite often on the same bill. And so it's the legacy of rebel film programming, and the eclectic lineup that really feeds into Scalarama. So Scalarama was born out of a season which was a tribute to the Scala. A couple of guys called Michael Pearce and Phil Foxwood did a season called Scala Forever in London, which was in lots of different venues in the similar fashion to Scalarama now, because of course it's a season of films that takes place across the whole of the UK. So this was just in London, and they had a number of different cinemas and exhibitors, film nights and things, doing films that kind of paid tribute to the explicit programming of the Scala. The next year, some people, I believe it was Certificate X Film Club in Manchester, wanted or asked if they would take it on tour. And Michael and Phil's response was that was anti the spirit of the thing, and really they should do it themselves. And so, when you're saying it like that, sounds kind of rude, but it was really positive. And basically they said, you can make it your own, and that's really how they've went ever since. And so it's expanded year on year. It became Scalarama the year after that. It was Scala Forever, Scala Beyond, and then Scalarama. and then it's kind of gradually creeped its way across the UK and become bigger and bigger ever since. There's over 70 events across Glasgow, Edinburgh, the Highlands and Islands. Those are the broad areas: Glasgow and West, Edinburgh and East, Highlands and Islands. But we have activity taking place in West Lothian and Berwick, which is technically over the border, but they have a big audience in Scotland, as well as being awesome. So it's kind of worth bending the rules for them. And all around, really. I'm not sure if I'm forgetting anything. In Prestwick, which is where I'm from, we've got our first event in Prestwick this year. And so it's a really, really big and diverse programme, diverse in terms of the films as well as the exhibitors themselves, because Scalarama is it's a network as well as a season of films, as well as in some sense just a film festival, but it's becoming more and more like dark matter that just exists everywhere, and so we can absorb whole film festivals into the programme. So that's why you'll have Berwick Film and Arts Festival, and we used to have Squiff, but Squiff moved their dates because really the only caveat for Scalarama is that it takes place in September. Secondary one is, I guess, that it's film related. So we can absorb whole film festivals into the programme, and as well as people that are doing things year round in terms of like Matchbox or specialist cinemas, or people that just want to do a standalone one-off event just because they have a passion project.
Yeah, so we've got a co-presentation with Queer Classics, who's another independent exhibitor in Glasgow. So we're showing Seahorse, which is Jeannie Finley's brand new documentary about this trans dad, Freddie, through his pregnancy and birth. So it's this really touching, intimate portrayal of parenthood and self-identity and how they interact. We are then, the very next day, curating a programme of short experimental films from Japan from the 70s and 80s. Called Kaleidoscopic Realms. So that's the first in the season, looking at experimental Japanese cinema from that period that we'll be doing. And then we're also presenting with the brand new film club, Diet Soda Cineclub, the Teen Apocalypse trilogy from Gregor Ake as well.
Yeah, really looking forward to that one. That's Diet Soda Cineclub is the really cool thing about Scalarama is the number of times that people start film clubs and like platforms for screening films for Scalarama and then continue doing it, or people that bring dormant things back and then it kind of is a good spark for them to keep doing it. And so Diet Soda Cineclub is one of those, but it's kind of it has one foot. Sarah Nisbet, who was a Scalarama coordinator in Edinburgh last year and also runs Real Girl Film Club, is branching out with this kind of different sphere of programming, and so we're really proud to be able to like collaborate with Sarah on this project. So that's going to be brilliant to screen those three films back to back. I think it's a funny thing because it's been really important for us, for Matchbox, and Scalarama has been a good vessel for that, is to help people keep doing it, because it's if you're doing it properly, it's really easy, I think, and I'll reserve comment on like people that are screening films without licenses, because it's really easy to just rock up and screen a film with like a DVD, and sometimes people are naive about that, and sometimes people are just doing it because they wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. But if you're going to do it with a license, as obviously technically you need to, it's hard because that costs. The venue often costs money, it costs you money to market it, so it's really easy to lose a lot of money, and then obviously unless you're independently wealthy, God bless you, it's really hard to keep going if you're going to keep losing money. So one of the things it's been really important to us is to try and pass on any help we can give to people to keep on doing stuff, and that really is one reason why we want to keep going, is for that reason. That's really rewarding. And
and I think as well, it's easy to forget that programming is a creative endeavour in itself, and I think that there's some things that you stumble across when you're programming and you think, actually, I really want to show this to other people. And programming's just an extension of that, like, look, see, this is like so good, look at it. I think for myself, it's also like slightly out of spite. Like, for 10 years, I've been programming films and existing in the film industry, and I don't think I'll ever stop, entirely driven by spite.
Yeah,
so.
We're just too stubborn and spiteful. We just enjoy, like, the thing about screening films is, for me, is like we get to show films to people, which is great fun. We get to make posters, which is fun. Sometimes we get to cut trailers. We get to do research, which is fun and rewarding. It's actually really amazing when you finally find a license holder, or you finally get permission, or you get in touch with a director or an actor or a producer or anyone that you admire or that's an interesting person. You get to chat to them about things. And then, you know, it's also just really rewarding to be able to screen films that are like the way that we chose to approach it and show films that are hard to see otherwise. We can show films that are really the best quality possible. That's part of what the work we do behind the scenes is like, which is maybe invisible again, is like we don't stop at finding a DVD. We try to find the best digital version, you know, the best that we can screen. You know, if we can screen from a DCP, we will. 35mm if we can, and all of that is really rewarding. I think it's all kind of a creative endeavour in itself, and so yeah, as long as we can keep feeding the cat, that's, I mean, I really can't stress that enough. He is a hungry cat. He's a chunky boy.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, and I'm looking forward to Weird Weekend and Scalarama.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.